We periodically get letters requesting information on how to weather steam locomotives. Well, you're in luck. I just finished up this Virginian 080 for our project layout, so let me walk you through the steps on how to do it. Now this Proto 2000 080 actually started life as a Chicago and Eastern Illinois locomotive. I took the tender off and soaked that in 91% isopropyl rubbing alcohol. And what this did is it caused the paint to flake off, so once it started to soften enough after about a half an hour of soaking, I scrubbed off the lettering in the paint with a toothbrush. Now for the cab, that was stuck on a little bit tighter, so I didn't want to risk damaging the model. So what I did is I took a Q-tip soaked in some pine sol and carefully rubbed off the 3-digit road number. Once the tender was stripped and the lettering was off the cab sides, I painted the tender black and then I gloss coated the cab side since that still had the paint on it. I applied Virginian steam locomotive decals from a microscale set. For the cab I just used the 3-digit road number, and then for the tender I put on the Virginian lettering as well as the tonnage rating for the tender as well as its water capacity. Now that I had the locomotive lettered for the Virginian, it was time to start weathering the engine. I started off by weathering the wheel sets on the tender. I used my favorite trick of dipping a micro brush into some railroad tie brown and painted the inside faces of the wheels. Next I masked off the printed circuit board housed inside the tender, and then I weathered the trucks and the underframe with thin polyscale railroad tie brown. And then I came in and did some spot weathering on the trucks, applying some rust to the leaf springs, and then dry brushed the truck side frames with some polyscale L&N gray. I also did some dry brushing on the tender deck. I used rust and L&N gray around the hatch where the water fill is. I also dry brushed some streaks of L&N gray down the sides of the tender. Along the vertical rivet seams, I used rust. With the tender done, I turned my attention to the locomotive. For this, I followed John Pryke's excellent weathering article that appeared in Model Railroader several years ago. I used various colors of polyscale to weather around the domes and along the seams on the boiler. I also used some polyscale thinned earth along the drivers. To weather the drivers evenly, I put the locomotive on a piece of track and then ran alligator clips from the rail to the power pack. With the wheels in motion, I sprayed it again with some thin polyscale earth tone paints. Once it was through, I cleaned the wheel treads with some Windex. Once the locomotive was done, I sprayed it with the satin finish, and then I painted the couplers and attached them. And with that, Virginian locomotive number 251 was done and ready to go. Probably the best source of information for locomotive detailing weathering is this book compiled by John Pryke called Steam Locomotive Projects and Ideas. Inside there's a great chapter as well as this great diagram on how to weather a steam locomotive. If you're looking to make your steam locomotive look like it's been in service for several years, try these weathering techniques. I think you'll like them.